Morning folks, Steve the Transit Camper. How are you? Got a video up for you today, the postman's bin. Got that power socket that we needed to adapt your hookup lead to a mains plug so I can charge the van. I've got one of these already, but I wanted one for the shed as well, so we've got that sorted. This is that splitter cable we talked about. So this plugs straight into the van, this end, and then one of these can go to the tent, and one of them comes from the hookup power, which is perfect. And then we've also bought this, which is the new fridge for the van. So this is made by IceQ. You can see that. Yeah, it's made by IceQ, and it's a 240 and a 240 and a 12 volt fridge, and we're going to pop that in today, and we're going to switch that with this bank of switches that I bought. Going to rig that in. Not sure how we're going to do it yet, but we'll have a look at that. And that switch came with some cables which have got some nice little inline fuses with, so as we learnt from our last video, always best to have some fuses. And some 16 amp cable, which is, I think is 0.75 diameter wire. Okay, so we're going to have a look at what we're going to be doing next. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is whip all this panel off, and we're probably going to look to see if we can mount the switches there. So I'll put you on a bit of slow timer for that. That panel out of the way. I can feel behind here, but everything's got our switch bank there. It's not in the way of the gas bottle. We're going to tidy these cables up. We discussed before, we're going to come from the battery power, we're going to use fuses, going to run round, going to mount the fridge up there in this box, which I'll show you in a minute. And we're just going to get on with that. So this bank of switches is going to go there. I'm going to use that old switch hole to cover that up. And it's going to go something like that, so it'll look something like that. First of all, we need to cut some of this felt back so we can see what we're doing. Got it all peeled back. Anybody who's used this stuff, it's an absolute nightmare. But hopefully that'll all tuck back in once we've cut our hole, plugged our switch in, and then this will all tuck in and we can neaten it up a bit. Okay. If you look at the back of these switches, they're very unforgiving. You've got a tiny bit of overlap there. So your hole's got to just miss these and then not be too big that it sits above there, so it's a tiny bit of relief. So you've got to be careful here. Make sure you measure it. So it's really tricky to get in there. What I'm going to do is just see where we are with this. Might get lucky, the hole might be big enough. And then we can stretch the fabric. Yeah, it's not quite big enough. Okay, after a lot of messing around, we finally got it in. That's a perfect fit, that is. Right, we'll tidy that dust out and see if we can get it to fit. As you can see, that drops in nicely, and the felt all gets pulled back. Just make sure you've got no bits behind this felt because it'll leave lumps. Here's a bit of a lump there. Get rid of that. Make sure you clean all that dust out from behind. That's perfect. We can get some screws and we can screw that in. So we know we can get to the switches, we'll take them out from behind. Lovely. These holes are right on the edge. I think that's got enough. This one's a bit dodgy. This one's a good fit. That's a good fit. That one was a bit dodgy. Not enough meat behind. So that was really tricky fitting that. These things are always best fitted from new and then covered with the felt after. But as you're working on your Transit, you change things. You know, things don't work that you initially thought might. So this is one of those. So it's okay. At the minute, what we'll do is look at the wiring now. So what I've decided is this one is going to be the middle light. So when you open the van door, you're going to hit that one and that middle light's going to come on that we've talked about before. This one on the side is going to be for the fridge. I'm going to switch that on. It's going to show what the voltage is there when it comes on. And this will become useful at the same time, and that one. And that's just for any auxiliary thing you need to use in the van. So here we are, both batteries are green, you can see by these sensors, and it's showing 12.7 volts available, which is good. There's no longer anything off these batteries that isn't fused. So we've learnt our lesson. So we're going to come off this fuse board, going to come round to the back of the switches, and then it's going to go from the switches to the light, and we'll just wire that in. Going to use the lowest amp fuse off one of these. We've got 1, 2, 3 spare, 4 spare, so that's good. We've got plenty of spares. We can sort this job out. So we're just making some terminations. That's the negative. And the positive. Just show you this from our previous incident. There is a dodgy bit to that cable that goes to the lights. I've checked the rest all the way up through, going through the van. It's just that one piece. So I'm just going to cut that off, get rid of that. The wire's lovely and flexible, so it's not burnt or anything, but it's just got damage there. So we'll sort that out. Okay, so we'll just connect this one side up to the negative, and that's done then. Okay, that's nice and tight, and that's our live, ready to go in when we're happy with the installation. So to make the job much harder, the switch doesn't tell you which are the terminals, but one's gold and two are silver. So I'm going to assume that's the one to illuminate the switch, and these two are the on-off. But we'll have a quick look on the internet, make sure we're right this time. So I found a little picture online. It shows that switch, it shows the gold terminal, it shows the other two silver terminals, and it seems pretty straightforward. So I'm going to wire it up as I've seen it on the internet. I've looked at 2 or 3, they're all the same. So I think that's the way we're going to go. As I say, I used to be able to do these off the top of my head, but as you get a bit older, your memory goes, and I haven't been doing it for ages. So we'll connect all those up as per that drawing, and we'll see how we get on. So I've connected that up according to the internet. Like I say, there are a few pages the same. This is the first time we're seeing it that goes on fire. I'm fairly confident. There we go. So the blue LED lights lit up beautifully. I've kept that all very, very neat. Don't know whether you can see that far away there. Kept it all very neat. That's the middle light that we want to turn on as soon as we get in the van. And that bit's sorted. So that's the first part of the job done. Now we need to have a look at the fridge, and then we'll do one big tidy up with all the wires and get some cable ties out and tidy it up. And there's the wife asleep after a night shift. So there we are, there's our fuse box. There's the live terminated, and it's to a 5 amp fuse. I've ordered some smaller fuses, some 1 and 3 amp fuses. Bit overkill perhaps, and I've decided to call that one Spotlight, which is that one there. Perfect, looking a lot neater than it was before. So for the fridge, I've already got power going to that socket there. So I can go from there to my fridge quite easily. And the fridge is going to go in this top cupboard here. I need to make an alteration to that back plastic because it won't quite go in for the depth. We've also got to tidy that wire away in the trunk and back to there for that LED light, but that's fine. We'll get to that. So we're looking at these terminals, taking them off, get rid of that socket. I don't like those sockets because when you're driving along, the auxiliary socket just wobbles. It's lighter socket they call them, isn't it? It just wobbles and they drop out, or they're just enough to not make a connection, and then you lose your power to your fridge. So I'm not going to use the lighter type connection. I'm going to hardwire it in and put a fuse in line. So to avoid any problems, I'm looking at this. There's my one for refrigerator, which is the next one down from my Spotlight, which is that one. So I'm going to take that fuse out before I start. That way I'm not going to have any shocks. Just whip those screws out. And there's a cable tie on the back of that, which is just going to get rid of. Come back to me. I've knocked you. There's 2 cable ties. Okay. Whip those off. And that's where the power ends. Go into the fridge. That'll tuck up there nicely, connected to my fuse, which we'll show you in a minute. And I'll just neaten that cable up around the back of there, perhaps. Stuff that in front. Lovely. We'll have all that tidied up with some cable ties after, so we're not getting it knocked or anything. Okay, so this is the other end of that cable that's connected to the cigarette lighter. I've just managed to drag it through. There's going to be plenty of slack there to tidy this up in the air and bring it to the back of the switches. So that's that. And then the other side, which I've cut, is in here. Let me just show you that. It's just here at the back, which runs down to our fuse board. So we can strip that back as well. And that's all neatly wired, so that's why we've done it. And that can come to the back of our switch as well. The switch is going to be based here, remember, when that panel goes back on. But it's also going to light up that 12 volt, and it's also going to give me that 12 volt socket. Okay. So we're looking at the switch on the back of this panel now, and we've got the gold and the 2 silvers. So we're fairly confident that it's going to be the same sort of switch, same kind of wiring up. So we'll crack on with that. So the first job, the middle terminal, is the one that goes straight to the appliances. So that goes to the fridge. This one's going to go to the power indicator, the USB, and the auxiliary socket. And I've put a fuse in that, which came with them. So each one of them is going to be protected. Okay, and the negative cable from the appliance, not from the battery, from the appliance, goes on the gold, and gold's called number 1 terminal. And I've left a tail to connect to the others as well. Don't know whether I've left that one long enough. Might be a bit of a faff there, so I might put an extra piece in there. That's not a problem. Yeah, I've put an extra piece in there. It's a straight crimp. That's got that. So that gives me a bit of length there to play around with. I want them both to be the same length ideally. Perfect. So our live wire is on its own, and it goes straight to the battery. So according to the wire diagram, we're right. We've got 2 tails left to feed to the others, and that's going off to our fridge. So there we have it. So this wire comes from the fridge, and that is connected to the gold terminal, which is the common negative, and that's the switched wire coming out of that switched wire, because this one's just the power, this top one's just the power in. When you flick the switch, all the 12 volts comes to there, and it gets its negative pathway through the bottom one, which also lights the LED bulb in the switch. So then we've looped out from there through a fuse, and that comes to here, and then we've just looped into each appliance, and then the negative returns are looped through each appliance, and then that goes back to the switch, which then also diverts to the negative of the battery, which is all the way down there. So I will put the 2 diagrams up that I've used just to check that you're doing it right as well if you choose to do this. These could be a little bit smaller, a little bit neater, but they're fine. They're safe, and I've used a fuse. So the big test, sorry if it's all a bit wobbly. This will be to switch the fridge on. Superb. Volt meter comes up as well, and our USB sockets become available, and that 12 volt supply I'm sure will be fine as well. And that's it. We'll go to the other end now and connect the fridge. So I've got this screw out here, and I think I could probably just cut through there or even there, and then put a 90-degree bracket, just fixing it back on there. At the end of the day, I don't want to take all of this off. It goes all the way over there, look. And it goes above the sink. So I don't want to take that off, ideally. So we'll have a look at what we can do with it. So just looking up inside there, you can see the line that needs to come out. That's with the fridge in place. Let's come back so you can see what I'm doing here. So we need to take it out along that line. Okay, we'll mark that up and we'll have a look at trying to do that. So that's the line marked there. Could even try taking a piece out there, and then I've still got the screw to attach that top bit to. Yeah, I think we need to try that. I'd like to try and do it in situ though. So as I said, this end, the cigarette lighter end, I'm going to be getting rid of because they're useless. Anybody who's ever had them. Threw the fuse on the floor then, didn't I? I'm going to need that, so I know it's the right rating. Okay, so that gives us everything that I want to see. And what I want to see is which is the live. And it's obviously that one because that's where the fuse sat in. Okay, so I've identified my live. That's my negative. So I can wire that in hardwired. You won't be able to see this, but it's actually saying that's a 10 amp fuse that goes in the fridge, which surprises me. That seems a bit high really, but I'll put an inline fuse in and I might rate it a little bit lower than that. So these little fuse holders that came with the LEDs, lo and behold, that's the same size fuse, so I'll use that. Haven't connected the 12 volts up yet, but we are hooked up on power. Let's just pop that in, and there we have it. I think you'll agree it's a lovely fridge. I'll go over it in a minute. My wife says I'm a messy worker. I think I would probably have to agree with that. There's Kat. She's content to lie on her mobile phone. She's not texting now, she's having a sleep. We're just coming through underneath. That's the 12 volt cable coming down, and we'll clip that all up, but that pushes up under the sink. So that's where we're going next. There we are under the sink. It's going to be a bit noisy because of the heater. And there's our power cable with our fuse in line. And that's just got to connect to these, so I've just got to swap those connectors. And that'll be that job done. Okay, so I've switched off the 240. All of those come on. And my fridge comes on. Superb. Sorry about the shaky camera. This is the fridge we chose purely for its dimensions, really. I'll be honest, it's 22 litres, it's made by Ice Q, and it cost £97 from Amazon. I tested this out, it went down to 4 degrees within 25 minutes in the house. This is running off 12 volt at the moment. I'm gonna have to offset it that way on because of the door. That's fine. So plenty of storage. It is for just for your eggs, bacon and a bit of milk, really. 2 side doors, those both come off as well. I'm sure you'll agree that's a nice fridge. Lovely. And it fits in its cupboard beautifully. Just got to put the top of the cupboard back on to get the door click again. So when I've come to put the top back on, this is now too long. So if you see that, it's obviously lower than the fridge, so I'm going to have to shorten the height of that. But I'm just going to go away and do that and refelt it, and I'll show you the finished product. So there we have it. I've adjusted that. I've had to cut some off it. I had to move my clip. But it's all worked out beautifully. That's the end of that. So that fridge is now obsolete. That's gone. Had to tidy up with the cables. That looks all right. I'm happy with that. So that area is now finished. Okay, that's it for this one, folks. I've got my fridge wired in. I've adjusted my cupboard door. I've got that sorted. I've put my switches in to control my light. As soon as the van door opens, we can get in, switch a light on, and we know where we are. And it's not confusing any of the other lighting circuits. It's running off its own circuit. Now when I switch all the lights off in the van, none of the LEDs are leaching. They're all going off as they're supposed to. So I hope you've enjoyed what you've been watching. It's a bit of a long one, but that's cool. If you like what you see, please click and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Steve the Transit Camper. Take care.